Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Monday, September 9th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Thanks for joining us for our first episode. Coming up this year, California dairy farmers have taken extra precautions to deal with the new threat of a potential bird flu outbreak.
So we've been watching this unfold in other states before it finally was transferred here.
Last week, it was announced that 3 California dairies had detected the virus. We'll hear details, but first, today's headlines. Weeks after she switched party affiliation, Politico reports State Senator Marie Alvarado-Gil is now being sued by a former staffer. KVPR's Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado has these details.
According to Politico, Alvarado-Gil's former chief of staff, Chad Condit, is suing her for alleged sexual harassment. The lawsuit was filed last Thursday and claims the state senator created a hostile work environment, even alleging Condit was forced to perform sex acts on the senator and was later allegedly fired when he resisted. Condit joined Alvarado-Gil's office after a failed bid for the assembly in 2022. He was terminated in December. Alvarado-Gil recently made headlines by switching from a Democrat to a Republican, saying she no longer recognized her party. Since the switch, KVPR has made multiple requests to interview the senator, but has not been successful. Alvarado-Gil represents much of Eastern California, including the Sierra, Modesto, and parts of Madera County. For KVPR News, I'm Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado.
Fresno State football is officially back in town. The Bulldogs met with the Sacramento State Hornets at Valley Children's Stadium this past Saturday, playing for a sold-out crowd. Fresno State earned its first win of the season, 46-30, and wasted no time by getting its first touchdown by wide receiver Magdalena in the very first play. During the game, fans also welcomed Fresno State's new athletic director, Garrett Classy, who comes from Houston. The Dogs go up against New Mexico State this Saturday, also at home. The game starts at 7 p.m. Millions of dollars from Fresno's arts and culture tax, known as Measure P, are finally getting to local artists. As KVPR's Esther Quintanilla reports, the city hopes the investment will blossom creativity.
Nearly $9.5 million from Measure P are going into the hands of dozens of artists and organizations to support numerous arts projects across the city. Olga Nunez is the board president of the Fresno Arts Council. She says the funding will expand access to creative programs, bring more artistic opportunities, and enrich daily life in Fresno.
Art is more than just a form of entertainment. It's a cornerstone of our community.
And arts isn't the only area getting a boost from the funding. Measure P also generates revenue to improve, maintain, and create new neighborhood parks, establish new recreational and after-school programs, and create safe walking and biking trails. For KVPR News, I'm Esther Quintanilla.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from the members of KVPR. Join at $8 or more per month and access ad-free NPR podcasts through NPR+. Give now at kvpr.org/donate.
And now to our main story. California is home to the most dairy cows in the U.S., with around 1.7 million. Nearly 90% of those live here in the Central Valley. So earlier this year, when scientists discovered that avian influenza, or bird flu, had been transmitted to dairy cows in other parts of the U.S., many California farmers were left worried. Bird flu is highly contagious among birds, and between 2022 and this year, over 4 million chickens were euthanized in Merced County because of potential exposure. For months, California dairy farmers were able to keep their herds from getting infected, until now, as 3 dairy farms in California have detected the virus. Dr. Michael Payne is a dairy outreach coordinator for the UC Davis Western Institute of Food Safety and Security. He's helping explain how dairy cows most likely contracted bird flu.
There's convincing evidence that a single bird or birds with the HPAI bird flu virus that is generally circulating inside the United States developed a couple of mutations that allowed for easy transfer and replication inside bovine mammary tissue. So how that bird transferred that particular strain of virus into cattle is unknown. Perhaps the bird pooped or died inside a water trough. Perhaps it died inside feed that was incorporated into silage. However it happened, that particular herd somewhere inside the panhandle of Texas became infected. And the convincing, persuasive evidence that we're seeing is that from that time, every other case of every other infected herd, every other animal occurred either as a result of animal-to-animal transfer through nose-to-nose contact of calves or through milking, or through transfer on fomites, on inanimate objects, so non-animal, non-live animal transmissions, such as dirty boots, clothing, tractor trailers, contaminated equipment, that sort of thing.
Officials haven't revealed where exactly in the Central Valley that bird flu has affected cows. Can you explain why that would be?
Yes, so both USDA and CDFA, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, have a policy that they don't release highly specific information about the location of infected herds or flocks. I completely support that particular policy for a very good reason, we think. If the exact locations of dairies were to be announced, what you would see would be an enormous amount of traffic that would occur there. And if what you're trying to do is go ahead and limit the spread of a disease, then having that sort of traffic in and around a dairy that was infected, it would be the absolutely worst possible thing.
The LA Times reports that it appears this particular virus strain that's been detected here in the valley is nearly identical to one found in Colorado dairy herds. So how could that have happened?
It certainly did not result from a wild bird transfer into California dairy cattle, but rather either through the transfer of live animals or through the transfer of equipment. Right now, USDA and the involved states are doing intensive epidemiological studies, surveys, in order to best determine how that transfer might have actually occurred.
I recently spoke with Anya Radabau, the CEO of Western United Dairies. That's a trade group representing most California dairy farmers. She had discussed some of the safety precautions that farmers are now taking to protect their herds. How important are these biosecurity measures going forward as farmers deal with this disease?
So Ms. Radabau is absolutely correct. The single most important protective actions that producers can take to protect themselves it relates to biosecurity. Last week we sent out a list of the top 10 things where producers could do to protect themselves from having their herds become infected. It's not a silver bullet, it doesn't completely guarantee safety, but it certainly can go a long way. These things include isolating animals that have been off the farm and are coming back to the farm, or animals that are being added to the herd from a different location, having them isolated in a place that is secure from other current residents, cows or animals, pressure washing and disinfecting equipment when it is transporting animals to a place and then coming back to the dairy. There's a variety of biosecurity measures that are proven to be effective in helping prevent transfer of all manner of microbes, but in our case specifically for the avian influenza.
Anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Payne?
So we've been watching this unfold in other states before it finally was transferred here. And one of the other few bright spots is that California Department of Food and Agriculture and the dairy industry in general have been able to learn a lot from other states that have had to go and deal with it. And what I'm seeing right now on the part of CDFA is probably, as coordinated and as aggressive a response as you could hope for. And one of the reasons for that is, unlike some states, which unfortunately through no fault of their own, had the virus circulating for months before they even identified that it was in fact bird flu, we have the advantage of having been forewarned and forearmed. And so I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to limit this to as small a number of dairies as possible.
That was my conversation with Dr. Michael Payne of the UC Davis Western Institute of Food Safety and Security. Dr. Payne also emphasized that people who consume dairy products at home should not be concerned as long as their items are pasteurized. And that does it for today. Thanks for listening. If you have feedback or a story idea, we would love to hear from you. Email podcast@kvpr.org. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.